Oh my God! Blood in the streets! OK Corral! Except, no. I'm just a gun-toting dude out of 49th State. I'm not as awesome as E.J. Owens, not as charming as Mark Walters, nor his sidekick Shanto, but I am someone that homophobes think doesn't exist, an educated gun owner. So, if you've got a few minutes to listen, we're going to talk some real gun sense. The main story inspiring this episode of Talking Real Gun Sense comes from one of the main bulwarks of homophobia known as the District of Columbia, and it concerns itself with a landmark case involving concealed and open carry. Now, the weekend of July 26th, the case of Palmer versus D.C. found D.C.'s regulations on guns unconstitutional and effectively turned D.C. into a constitutional carry jurisdiction. Now, most old-school media outlets didn't give it much thought. Seems that Hamas's rocket attacks against Israel provided them with big enough of a distraction from the fact that, once again, their assumptions about the right to keep and bear arms is not shared by the courts. And several news outlets merely repeated a very terse report on the issue by Reuters and buried it in their news sites or in their papers. But Mother Jones managed to indulge in a little hand-wringing the following Monday, and while the usual catchphrases of OK Corral, Blood in the Streets, and Wild West were missing, they nonetheless followed the usual trail of left-wing homophobia, calling concealed carry dangerous, assuming that armed citizens are crazy, and inserting a little fear-mongering by bringing up dated tragedies that really are rare exceptions and not the prevailing reality of gun ownership. And, as a parting shot, they made an impotent attempt to make it sound like their paranoia is backed by science, quoting the laughable study maintained by the Violence Policy Center that attempts to paint concealed carry as a criminal enterprise. So, where do you begin with this? I'll answer by saying that the numbers do not justify the fear-mongering at all, and I'll even use the VPC's numbers to prove it. The go-to place for a lot of anti-concealed carry propaganda comes from their Concealed Carry Killers page. At the time I was putting this video together, the running tally they have been keeping stood at 644 people killed. First of all, if you do any research on American demographics, you're not going to see 644 as identifying a major social problem, especially given the fact that the U.S. has over 315 million people. We measure our biggest problems, like heart disease and accidents, in 10,000s, even 100,000s. 644 is nothing. But that 644 is a well-padded number. Even the VPC admits, by a graph it includes a little further down, that this number includes unintentional deaths, cases still being investigated, and suicides, which make up the majority of its number. If we eliminate this padding, we are left with 159 confirmed murders committed at the hands of licensees. But if you look through the cases they have recorded, you will find that not all of these convictions involved a gun. In fact, several incidents they have reported, no weapon was identified. This is especially the case in incidents reported from Michigan and Texas, so the number is actually less than 159. This is important because the VPC is trying to positively identify gun-carrying CCW licensees as a threat to society. But 29 incidents from Michigan and Texas cannot be attributable to any identified weapon, so the number drops to 130. Further still, this 130 is not an annual rate, but the accumulation of recorded incidents over 7 years. This means an average of less than 19 murders happen at the hands of CCW licensees each year. One final number that blows the cover off this chicken little attempt at stirring up national concern involves the number of CCW licensees in this country. The Crime Prevention Research Center recently put this number at a little over 11 million. This means that murders, while not unheard of and certainly not outside the realm of possibility, are extremely rare among concealed carry licensees, comprising only 0.2% among all licensees. This means that practically 100% of all concealed carry licensees are safe, solid citizens. Now, the public discourse when something like this comes up, whether it be a state, whether it be campus carry, tends to go something like this. A measure gets proposed, and the voices of a fearful but ignorant few rise up, doom-saying all sorts of violence that will erupt. The measure gets passed, and no such violence ensues. Happens time and time again. But furthermore, we're starting to see the same thing with something called constitutional carry, which does not require a permit in order to carry concealed. If you're legally able to own a gun, you can carry without a permit. It's been the case here in Alaska since 2003. And back then, we heard the usual cries of blood in the streets and so on. But after it was passed, and for the 11 years since then, no such thing has happened. Nor did we have any reason to suspect that it would, because constitutional carry had been exercised in this country before there was a constitution, even before there was a union. It happened in the state of Vermont, which has the loosest gun laws, and yet has long enjoyed some of the lowest crime rates, even before shall issue laws caught fire during the 1990s. So, if the home of someone like Bernie Sanders can tolerate concealed carry, why can't the folk in California, New York, and Illinois do the same? Now, I'm confident they will. Illinois has become the newest state to loosen up its concealed carry laws, and there are rumblings that New York and California may not be that far behind, which is great news for any freedom-loving American. I actually think I did better this time. It was tighter, more focused, so I'll pat myself on the back for a video that didn't suck as much as the first one. Didn't get around to reviewing any gear, but I will at least give a shout out to Mark Walters and Shanto of Armed American Radio, which is the best radio show you can tune into for 3 hours of gun rights goodness. Catch them over to armedamericanradio.org and subscribe to their podcast. And pray for Israel. Those guys take so many pains to keep themselves secure while restraining all the righteous fury they are well capable of against enemies bent on destroying them. You keep safe, keep aware, and God bless.
Blut auf den Straßen. Okay, Korall. Aber nicht wirklich.